well, we got some questions there about more to do with wood, I think, in the internal environment. And one of the questions is about the wood-water interaction.
Okay.
What are the benefits from wood and I think it means what are the benefits of the wood and water interaction in the built environment? I think this is probably more asking about moderating internal climates.
Yeah.
I don't know if
yeah. So yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, I'm going to leave the kind of the fundamentals of water molecules and hydroxyl groups to you, Callum. But from a more pragmatic perspective, then of course we know that wood absorbs moisture from the environment when the relative humidity is high, and then will desorb when the humidity drops. So this is something that we know about wood, and we can actually use that to an advantage, because if we have environments, and typically here in Finland, I mean, the humidity can range from as little as about 10% in winter when you've got the heating on.
Because it's internal.
It's really internal relative humidity. It's very, very super dry.
That is really dry.
To something like about 90% in the summer. I mean, I've recorded 10% even in our house.
Yeah.
So it's actually pretty uncomfortable, quite frankly, and also there are kind of like health benefits, health implications there as well. So, I mean, we can utilize this kind of phenomenon that wood has of kind of adsorbing and desorbing moisture to mediate. So if we have a sufficient amount of material and sufficient open surface area, then we can use that to help absorb some of the moisture, lower the relative humidity, and then release it back. So buffering the internal relative humidity.
Yeah, the
and
surface
also the
area
temperature.
point is important.
The surface area is very, very important.
If you have fibre, that's going to be so much more effective than solid pieces of wood.
But there's also other ways in which you can actually utilise even the natural structure of wood. Right. We know that moisture sorbs much more quickly along the end grain than it does from the tangential or radial face. Yes. So we could think about how could we create, for example, panels within an environment that utilise the end structure. I'm going to use this sample here, so that using this face, which we don't normally use, we usually show this in our panelling, but if you use this, then you can create a much more effective buffering environment, and that can be beneficial. And it's also because of the energetic changes, that we have a release of heat during the absorption process, and conversely heat is required. So there's also a regulation of the internal temperature to a certain extent as well. We need to know more about this, and I think this maybe goes a little bit off topic, and I'm rattling on a little bit now. But also, I mean, the visual aspect, when you combine the kind of the visual aspect with the potential to mediate the interior environment, that actually makes quite a nice.
I think we might be moving on to that with the next question.
Okay.
I'll stop you at that point.
That's fine.
But I think one of the points I was going to make and ask you about is, like, we've got a piece of wood here which is clearly slightly distorted, and it reminds me of. They used to make cladding in Norway that was like a horizontal cladding like that, and they designed it in such a way that when the wood dried out, it would open up because of this cupping effect, and you'd get an airflow behind, and it would dry out behind the cladding. And I think that's super clever, and that's a bit of, we were talking about indigenous knowledge. I think things like that, wood distorts, it's annoying, but actually we could exploit that.
Absolutely, I think that is a kind of a
things we've forgotten.
We forget things like that. But I mean, I absolutely agree that this kind of knowledge about the behaviour of wood, this kind of this intrinsic knowledge, it's fascinating. What you can actually do.
Because people think wood science. You say, like you're a party. What do you do? Wood science. The clogs and cartwheels. Is there can't be any science in wood. Here's another one. There's two questions here. They're pretty much the same question. It says, wood often feels warmer than other materials. Why is that? And then the second question says the same thing, but it says, can we make use of this in the built environment? So why does wood feel warm to the touch?
The reason it feels warm is because basically down to the material properties. So wood has a fairly high heat capacity, so relatively high. It's also a fairly good insulator, so it has a fairly low conductance.
It doesn't transmit heat.
Yeah, so it doesn't transmit. So if we place our hand on a piece of wood like this. Our hand is at body temperature, 37
You
degrees
hope so.
Celsius. So it's quite, hopefully, all being well.
All being well.
All being well. So what we're actually feeling is a sensation of coolness, not of heat.
No.
But because wood doesn't conduct heat away from my hand as quickly as, for example, a piece of metal or a piece of concrete, then it feels warmer, or it feels less cold. Yeah. And it's to do with the material properties, and it's kind of as simple as that. And can we use that? Well, actually, yes. We did some research a few years ago where we actually measured this, and we worked with some psychologists, and this was actually a really nice bit of work and very interesting. Because we actually wanted to put a figure on, this feels warm, this feels cold. What is actually the temperature difference in degrees Celsius? And at normal room temperature, if you place your hand on a piece of pine and at the same time a ceramic tile, you'll sense a difference in temperature. But how much would that be? And what we actually found was it's about 2 degrees difference in temperature. Yeah. So the implications of that are that if you, for example, had a floor made of tiles or of wood, then the ceramic floor would need to be about 2 degrees warmer for it to feel equally warm.
I've got a ceramic floor. Oh.
Yeah. So
not good in the winter.
So it's not exactly. So I mean, of course, if you're in an environment where it's constantly fairly warm and you want a cooler environment, then ceramics are probably the right thing. But if you're living in a cooler environment where you want to get the benefits of the tactile effect, then it's
really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wooden floors, people love wooden floors, and then every time you see a picture of it, people don't have their shoes on when they're walking, because it feels nice. And people, when they see a bit of wood, they'll very often go up and stroke it. Like you don't see that happen with concrete very often.
Not that often, I don't think.
Sometimes.
No.
But
yeah.
Rarely.
Yeah.
I love concrete.
Do you? No.
Did you hear that? He likes concrete.